Oh, hey, how's it going? Great to see you. Two things while I've got you here. First of all, you're looking fantastic. Second of all, and I don't want to be repeating rumors, spreading information around that, we don't know what it's about, but apparently it's actually Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring you a brand new fresh photography tutorial. Now, just before we dive into what we're doing this week, if you haven't seen it on the channel already, we've got a brand new trailer for our new documentary all about Tutorial Tuesday on the channel. So go and check that out. I'll pop a link to it down in the comments as well, so you can go and see it super easy. But this week, we're going to dive back into Lightroom Classic, and we're going to take a look at just how easy Lightroom makes portrait editing. We've actually looked at this kind of stuff before, but we're going to look at something different this time. I recently got back from shooting with the new Fujifilm GFX 100 RF, basically a medium format compact camera. Really fun to play with. But part of what we did while we were shooting with it was some portraiture, which was great for them being able to highlight some editing of portraits in Lightroom, and actually a new technique that I had only just found, which is super easy. It makes this incredibly straightforward. And if you don't really know where to start with editing portraits, this is such a great starting point just to get you going. And if you don't really know what you're doing with kind of masks and all that kind of stuff that we've looked at in the past, this is incredibly straightforward, but it also affords you the opportunity to learn as you go. So let's dive in. We're going to work with two different portraits because I want to show you just how easy it is to work with this stuff. First up, we've got this one here, right? So actually the portrait itself is all good. Everything is fine. I might just do a quick crop because there's probably no need to have all this space on the right. So I might do something more like that. I think that probably works better for the overall image. I might even just increase the exposure a tiny bit, something like that. We can always come back and reduce that if we want to, but I'd rather have it a little bit brighter than too dark. So we'll keep that in mind. But again, we can always change this later, and this is all personal taste stuff anyway. So where we're gonna go from here is really using these presets on the left, which I totally appreciate. Maybe you want to stay away from presets, but these presets are so unique and interesting in the way they work, and they will be very specific to your photo. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So we are looking at these adaptive presets on the left. So you'll see that some of these adaptive portrait, adaptive sky, adaptive subject, we're going to work mostly with the adaptive portrait settings here. This is a great way to really get going with your portraiture editing. So let's open up the drop-down menu. They should just be on the left while we're in the Develop tab here. And we are able then to just pick from any of these, and Lightroom is going to use the built-in AI systems to detect which part of the image it should be applying these various techniques to. So it's basically going to mask areas for us based on what we select, and then apply some small changes, and we can adjust how big those changes are, and we can also see exactly what those changes are and what Lightroom is doing, so we can learn how we actually could edit like this ourselves. But it makes it so easy and quick. So let's look, for example, first up, if we just mouse over Enhance Portrait, you'll see immediately there will be differences to the image. If I take the mouse off that, you can see there's a difference in the eyes. There's a slight difference in the skin as well. But if we go over Glamour Portrait, which this arguably is a little bit more, of a glamour portrait, I suppose. But again, this is all to your taste. It will affect the eyes, it'll affect the skin. So let's go ahead and click that. And Lightroom has now made these changes. And what has now happened is if we go into the masking panel up here, Lightroom has made all of these different masks. So if you can see there's facial skin, the eyes, the whites of the eyes, the iris and the pupil, and you can turn on and off any of these to see exactly what it's doing. So it's softening that skin, it's brightening it a little bit, and we can actually adjust any of these masks ourselves. Now, let's actually undo what I've just done. Let's go back to not having that applied, right? There's even more we can do with this. Let's go ahead and click Glamour Portrait again. So we just mouse over that. It's going to apply that. You can see it's doing a lot to things like the lips as well. There's loads going on there. We actually have this slider up in the top here, which allows us to adjust all of what Lightroom has just done with this Glamour Portrait setting at the same time, right? We're essentially adjusting how intense we want this specific preset to be applied. So let's bring this down to something like 70. Makes it a little bit more natural in the way that it's applied, but we can still do other things, right? If we go over, for example, something like Enhance Eyes, we can click on that. That's going to just actually add that on top of what it's already doing. So we can bring that down a little bit. Maybe it's a bit too much at 100%. Let's go ahead and click smooth hair, or maybe we want to go texture hair. Texture hair looks really good. So let's click that. Let's bring that down. That one's really quite intense. So let's bring that down to something like 40, maybe 50, maybe something like that. And then let's come off that masking panel so we can see exactly what's going on here. If we just press the backslash key on the keyboard to see before, this is where we started. So it looks really nice, right? Natural. I think out of camera, actually, it looks really nice. But if you did want to do these edits, it's so quick and easy. This is where we've got to, right? We've brightened the image. We've now affected the portrait in the ways that you would probably affect a more fashion, maybe feminine portrait like this. It's going to work pretty well, right? That's before, and this is after. And all of that took, I mean, if I wasn't explaining it, maybe 30 seconds, maybe less than that, which is remarkable. I think this is such an interesting way to be able to edit your photos. You can still go in and do some of the other stuff that we've looked at in the past. So for example, I might go in, do a radial gradient, maybe something like this, right? And then let's go ahead and go invert and just darken round so we get a little bit of kind of a vignette for the photo. I might even go in and do a linear gradient coming in from the left, something like this, and just brighten that since we've got this kind of nice white kind of curtain. That's obviously where the light is. Maybe bring the dehaze down a little bit. I think that looks really nice, actually. We could even come in from the right with another linear gradient and maybe just darken that side down just a touch. I think that really kind of accentuates the lighting of the portrait. We might even want to bring the overall saturation down, not too much, but something like that I think can look really nice. Maybe the vibrance up just a touch. Now, if we look at before and after, that's where we were. This is where we've got to. We can also come in and add some other things in here as well. So let's just close down the adaptive portrait. Let's go adaptive subject. And let's look at something like warm pop. That's going to warm our subject and ideally make them pop a little bit against the background. So let's go ahead and add that. Let's click that. Again, I might just bring the amount down just a touch, something like that. I think that looks really nice. So before and after, we've made such a difference to the photo, but it's so easy to do it. And of course, like I said before, we can go in, we can see all the masks that Lightroom is adding in and what it's doing, and we can learn about how it is making it look the way it's making it look, which I think is fantastic. I think that's the best part about this, is you can learn why it looks the way it looks, as opposed to just applying a preset and moving on, right? Which I think is really useful. Let's now work with this portrait. Now, this one I'm not going to crop. I quite like that she's right over on the right and having some of that kind of negative space on the left, but we certainly want to be brightening this up. So something, I think even like that, maybe we'll bring the highlights down a little bit. We might cool it a touch, not too crazy. And then I'm going to bring the saturation down a little bit, the vibrance up. And then again, let's come into adaptive portrait. Let's go ahead and look at glamour portrait, maybe enhanced portrait is going to work better for this one. Bring that down to about 80, maybe even polished portrait. Let's look at that. Yeah, I quite like that. Let's bring that down to about 80. I'm actually going to go ahead and do enhance eyes again, but I want to bring that down a little bit, something like that. I think for this one, maybe we'll go for, should we go for smooth facial skin? Let's click that. Bring that down just a touch because we don't want to go too crazy with something like that. I think we're also getting a little bit of that in the polished portrait. And then maybe we want to go for something like smooth hair on this one. So let's go ahead and do something like that. Again, bring the amount down. And then we might want to go in and just like we did before, create our own mask, the radial gradient, something like this. I quite like this. And actually just brighten that. So we're getting light coming in from this window, but it's spilling onto our subject. I'm going to go ahead and bring the dehaze down a little bit because it kind of gives that sunlight feel to things. And then what I might do is just go in and do one more radial gradient, something like that, quite big. Invert that and actually just bring that down so we get a little bit of darkness out towards the edges. And then let's look at the before and after. That's where we started and that's where we got to. That is such a massive difference. And look at all the masks we've applied. How easy was that? Now, I'm not saying that you would want to do this for all your portraiture, right? I think that there's massive value in being able to go in and actually do it yourself because you have full control. But I think this is such a great way to get started with this stuff if it's not something you're super confident with. If you don't know where to begin, this is such a good starting point. And actually, in particular, for these kind of more, like I say, feminine, very kind of fashion style portraits, I think this works so well. I think it's such a good technique. And what we will almost definitely look at in future tutorials is some of these other ones as well. Adaptive sky, adaptive blur background. So keep an eye out for that in the future. But if there's something specific that you would like to see in a future Tutorial Tuesday, let me know down in the comments, because I'm always keen to make the stuff you guys want to see. Don't forget to check out a full list of all the kit we used for these photos, for all these video stuff. Everything's down in the description, so you can go and check that out for yourself. Don't forget to like, subscribe as well, because there's new content all the time. I'll see you in the next video, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.